It's 9 o'clock on March 12th, time for our regular board meeting. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good soapbox.
I'm not doing too bad. Roll call will show that all commissioners are present. At this time, we'll open the public forum. Anybody wishing to speak on any issues on the public forum? Anyone wishing to speak at the public forum? Last call. Anyone wishing to speak?
Is this for something specific?
Something that's not on the agenda.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay, so, okay. If not, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is the consent agenda. Commissioners, you have before you the consent agenda, items 1 through 18. Anyone wishing to pull items off the agenda? If not, I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move to consent agenda.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The next item we have on the agenda is we have a visitor, Mr. Turch from Washington, D.C. Welcome, Mr. Turch. We just saw you recently. Commissioner Lenzmeyer, Commissioner Clark, and myself were just this past week in D.C.
Still haven't recovered.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and my fellow citizens I'd like to think of Stearns County. It's really good to be home, and really there's no place, as the firm has gotten larger and we've become international, and I think now a dominant public sector firm, at least in California. I think back of how my high school is 1 block from here, and the place where I was married is 1 block in the other direction. And where I went to college, you'll notice I said attended. I don't know how much I learned, is only a few miles down the road. I was a little disappointed. I was pleased with the snowfall, but a little disappointed in the temperature. I like it to be a little colder so I can just hear again that sound from my youth, squeaky snow, where you walk on the snow and it's like 20 below zero. There's a sound I never forgot. I prepared for you this morning incisive and scintillating comments for 60 minutes. Dr. Williams told me this mic goes off after 4. We negotiated to 6, so I'll speak more quickly than normal. Thank you for coming to Washington. It matters that you are there and you put a face on the real needs of the citizens of this county. Let me address a couple of those issues. First of all, broadband. Talked with Dr. Williams yesterday. You're conducting a feasibility study, and I ask that you send the results, the preliminary results of that study to us so that we can take them over to Congressman Peterson's office. We are so fortunate in this county in that the chair of the committee that oversees USDA and is one of the recognized agricultural experts in the world happens to be your representative. Let's not waste the opportunity. And in so many cases, I've had localities and clients where we've had the chair of the full committee on appropriations. Well, we need to get our request refined just a little bit more. And then he or she weren't there. Let's not miss that opportunity. Colin is a good and close friend. We've worked very closely with him for decades already. Give me the preliminary draft of that study. We'll get working on it, and then I will ask that you come back to Washington again. We'll sit down with Colin in his office, and we'll map out exactly the program that's going to deliver broadband to this county. I know it's an important issue. It ranks at the top of the list, and it certainly is at the top of the list for us as well. And then let's not forget that broadband is funded not only by USDA, but several other agencies, housing, commerce, I'm trying to think of, I think Health and Human Services has a stake in. Now, they have more particular requirements. That is, the Department of Commerce will be interested in broadband for small businesses in disadvantaged communities, and in other cases, we get into specialties for libraries and whatever. But let's get hopping on that, working together going forward, and seizing the opportunity that we have today to fund that program. As we get into transportation, 94, of course, is coming along. The gap will fill in as it fills in. I'm a little curious about North Star, which has emerged as a rather prominent issue in the area. You know that I've been involved in North Star since its very inception. I think all of the assumptions we had going back that many years may no longer be valid, so I'm at least pleased to see that you're moving forward on some efficacy studies to know how this might work for you and how it might work going into the future. I was reminded of your activity with North Star when one of the very, as you'll recall, at the inception of North Star, I was quite active in putting together the founders then with one of my clients, Metrolink in Los Angeles, and at that time chair of Metrolink recently deceased, and I did go out to his funeral, and I was reminded of how we started all of these great rail enterprises. Metrolink in Los Angeles is doing very well. North Star in Minnesota, maybe not so much. Let's see what we can do about that, but I think at some point then the facts just come out, and if you do the study and you can see what the projections are, you can make better decisions. I know the airport, although not listed on your priority list, is a regional issue. I know it's under discussion. You know in the firm that we have made a staff change recently, and we have brought in a man who just retired as the CEO of Nashville International Airport. He was a deputy at Houston, at San Diego International, at JFK. He worked for the Port Authority of New York and did head up the transportation division of Fleischman Hillard and Booz Allen Hamilton. So we're pleased to have him on board as you begin looking at the future of this airport and perhaps the county's involvement. We can provide some real help and expertise, and we'll see how that works going forward. On the sex trafficking, I congratulate you. It was really your efforts in this county that provided one of the initial domestic violence courts. We were happy to work with you to have that funded. And the last report I heard, it's been amazingly successful. We'll continue to work on that and the other issues that you have defined as priorities for the citizens of this county. Now, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. And again, hearing none, I want to thank you again for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Church. And I'll tell you what, you stole all my thunder for issues by commissioners, so they don't have to hear from me. So appreciate your efforts out there, and we'll be back. Commissioners, I don't know if you have any questions for David?
The air service.
The answer to you will be yes, Mr. Commissioner.
Let's see where it goes. The role of airports like St. Cloud, the smaller airports with proximity to metro areas is evolving. Just my bias, but I think in the past, the airport efforts were sold on the idea of passenger travel. And in my opinion, I think the real opportunity for an airport like this is much more the corporate service. The only factoid I'd offer in that respect is that all of the rental hangars for corporate aircraft are full, and there is a waiting list. The immediate need, I would think, or the immediate opportunity, however you want to look at it, would be at least for another hangar for now, and to see the response of the corporate world with the proximity to the metro. It isn't just the executive travel in the corporate world, but also perhaps another place for and maybe one of the air freight operations. And I don't know how to attract that, but I haven't read the airport report line by line. I've read a summary, and I don't know if that's addressed appropriately. But on the other hand, I don't, in essence, what I would be asking for that report would be to predict the future, and that's a pretty risky proposition. But that's just my bias, and I think that would be the most effective role for that. You touched on North Star. North Star has been plagued by the fact that North Star service started 60 days before the first train left, oil train left North Dakota, and we've been competing for the trackage ever since. We thought we were brilliant going into North Star using existing trackage. That has been one of the challenges for North Star. We don't own our own right-of-way. And to own our own right-of-way would be ungodly expensive on top of an already expensive proposition. So I don't have answers for that. You're negotiating with one of the big six railroads, and I'm told that of the big six, we should be grateful because they're the most reasonable, but nevertheless, that's challenging. There's a disadvantage on the front end of that is folks, fellow county commissioners were negotiating that had no experience in commuter rail, light rail. And BNSF had some experience with that, but we were at a negotiating disadvantage. It's great that people vocally support North Star. What we need is more seat commitment, and that just hasn't happened. Well, it doesn't fit my schedule. Well, I have to get off and make 2 transfers. I chaired North Star Corridor for 6 years, and I've heard all of the reasons why the current setup doesn't meet public standards, but that's not a big deal with me. It just seems to be too hard to predict what that could be with all of the restraints in place. So appreciate your efforts, not discounting them. Where are we without dreams? I'm not going to get into the lofty rhetoric that you use, but the punchline is
Nor in the singing.
yeah. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, real quick. The one other piece just to put out there that was great was Senator Tina Smith's staff had already had the article that got put in the Star Tribune about the mental health efforts that we're doing in partnership with Centricare, our police department, and others, and really the opportunities in the future about kind of that nexus between what we're trying to do with substance related, with mental health, with regards to victims of sex trafficking. I thought that was particularly good, and she also had a creative idea that related to transportation, so we'll see how that plays out too. Want to thank Amanda in your office too. She was very helpful in our meetings.
Pleased to hear it.
Yeah.
Pleased to hear it.
Yeah, I was quite pleased with the reception we had at the congressional offices as far as them being receptive to us and our needs. And, it's a matter of distribution of the funding, and that's always a challenge. And at least we go out there and make it heard what our needs are here, and hopefully, some of those dollars we send down there will come back. So,
Well, it is why, well, it's more than 4 minutes. My mic's still on. Thank you.
okay.
It's all my fault.
That is an ejection podium, though.
I see. Trying to be careful. It matters a lot that you're there, and so thank you for taking the trouble. I know how much trouble it is, and Minneapolis turns out to be a very expensive market. I can go to L.A. cheaper than I can come to Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. But so thank you for having me. Thank you for being out there. Mr.
Commissioner Mergen?
David, could you address a little bit with Highway 23, any of the safety issues that have come up that you may or may not be involved with there?
We have been involved in 23 going back to Marshall days, so from its very extension in the southwestern portion of Minnesota. That has really evolved over the years to be a substantial enterprise, now including everything pretty much from Marshall to 35, coming through St. Cloud, of course. And it's been put together, it's almost a Band-Aid approach to me in bits and pieces as we go along. It's a priority along the entire corridor. It's a priority particularly because you have members of Congress who are reacting to it. First of all, we begin with Colin Peterson in the west, and then we move through Tom Emmer. And Tom, as we get into the earmark thing, and I didn't really touch on earmarks, but is in favor very much of transportation and sees it, I think rightly so, as one of his responsibilities under the Constitution. So it's a high priority item. We're talking about an infrastructure bill. We've been talking about an infrastructure bill for 2 years. We still don't have it. FAST, the Transportation Act under which we operate currently, will expire next year. We're now in negotiation to change the FAST Act. I don't know if it's going to include things that are larger than just surface transportation, which has been the focus of those bills in the past. The idea of an infrastructure bill was to include airports, water, broadband, whatever else. We don't know where we're going with the succession to the FAST Act. It is one of the places where we're certainly talking about earmarks, and if that comes to pass in the successor to FAST, I can virtually guarantee I'm going to be there with marks for 23.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Church, I may add, on Wednesday and Thursday of last week, I was able to talk to Congressman Stauber, and he too is on board as it works its way up to Duluth. So he's very much aware of Highway 23 as well.
I appreciate his support as well, but you know that I deal with an institution that worships at the altar of seniority.
I know he's pretty far down there in the aquarium. So, anything else? If not, safe travels back. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is a public hearing on, I believe, no wake zones. Sheriff? Good morning, John.
Good morning, Mr. Chair,
Okay,
Commissioners.
we have two on the public hearing, I believe. We take them separately?
We are taking them
Okay,
separately.
okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Captain John Lenz, Stearns County Sheriff's Office. I have with me Assistant Stearns County Nathan Crow, who drafted the ordinances under consideration today. I believe first on the agenda is the public hearing for the ordinance number 585 from the Highway 23 bridge on the Sauk River to the County Road 49 bridge. This would replace the existing ordinance 195. Just by way of history, I've been having discussions with both the landowner who initially contacted me on this, the DNR, and the Environmental Services over the course of the last 3 years. The main concerns that were presented on this one were shoreline erosion, topographical changes in the waterway, and then some safety concerns too for fishermen, and then the amount of boat traffic at times on the river. So after numerous back and forths, it became clear that while shoreline erosion and protection doesn't naturally fall under the Sheriff's Office, the only way to implement something to protect that is an ordinance, and an ordinance of this nature is within the Sheriff's purview. So I contacted Assistant Stearns County Attorney Nathan Crow, discussed the ordinance with him. He drafted an ordinance, and we present that to the board this morning.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, this is a public hearing. We'll see if there's anybody that wants to testify. So, anybody wishing to testify on the no wake zone just described to you? Yes, sir. Come on up. Come up to the microphone, state your name and address, and then you may go ahead and testify.
My name is Mark Wolken, and we own a farm that's within that area that's being discussed this morning. I'm in sales, and I usually start my presentations by saying, if you're going to vote yes for this, I'll stop now. You don't have to hear me. But if you want me to continue, I can. Assuming you'd like me to continue, can I show some pictures over here? Can I squeeze between you guys a little bit, please?
Actually.
Can you hear me okay? Is this all right? Okay, thank you. Thank you. This is either from 1951 or 57. I couldn't read the writing on the picture. I got it from Stearns County. This is approximately, our farm starts about down here and goes to, I think, about here. And again, this is way back in the 50s and 60s, but you can see this big point of land that sticks out here. And this was a small lake here that was not attached to the river, if that's visible to you guys okay. And then you see this large point of land that sticks way out here. And then if you jump ahead to what we've got now, so this point of land that used to come out like this is gone. This used to be attached here. There's only just an island now. This used to be attached here. And this used to be attached, so this was the small lake. So you can see the difference in what's happened. This used to be the point of land that you saw that went way over there. Is completely gone. So these are not small pieces of erosion. These are pieces of property bigger than football fields. So do I need to go back and forth with the pictures, or do you kind of have the gist of it? Okay. So basically, I'm the third generation owner of that farm, so we've seen that from when we were little kids, and we used to sit there on the bank fishing, and occasionally a rowboat would come by. Now it's jet skis and boats with 200-300 horse motors. And because of the boat launch down here, all of that traffic has to come through this narrow portion of the river, which is fine, except they're always in a hurry. And they go literally within a few feet of your dock, basically. So if you get that amount of increased boat traffic going at the speed that they go, with the size of the boats that they have now, ultimately what you see is pieces of property the size of football fields disappearing. So one more point I wanted to make was, if you see right here, it's kind of starting to break through. We're about ready to lose this piece right here too. This is eroding through, so this will become an island. And it's kind of frustrating to lose all that property. And then, of course, we have people now that will sit on here and hunt and claim that it's their land and it's, you know, it's an island in public and things like that. So they're shooting, and this is our farmyard. So it would just be nice to get this under control a little bit. And I appreciate the work that you've done, John, to help us get this started, because to be honest, nobody else would pick up the ball with this. So thank you for doing that. Welcome. It is a public safety issue, in my opinion. Boats love to fish in here, and people come around these corners about 200 miles an hour, and it's ridiculously unsafe, as well as what it's doing to the shoreline. So I've worked with the soil and conservation people from St. Cloud, and because of the length of the piece of property that we own here, it's unrealistic for us to be able to really control this ourselves. Every other home over here on the other shoreline, for instance, has rock and so forth, because they only have 100 feet, you know, and we might, I don't actually know this distance, but this might be closer to a mile than 100 feet. So there's no way we can really fix this on our own without some help from you guys. Or this is just going to continue to erode, and it's not really very good for the quality of the river. So is that good? Any questions or anything?
Could you describe where you're asking for the no-wake zone from point?
So the red zone is the no-wake, or the proposed no-wake zone. The current no-wake zone starts up here at the landing and runs down to the County Road 2 bridge. That's Ordinance 195. This ordinance, if approved, would repeal 195 and then establish a new wake zone from Highway 23 down to County Road 49.
To 49?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. What is the distance of that?
I have not measured that out, but just by glancing at it, I would say we're increasing the no-wake zone by two-thirds, close to two-thirds.
So total distance, you'd say half mile?
Actually, river distance, I would say it's probably closer to three-quarters of a mile.
Three-quarter mile. And the no-wake zone means the boats go how fast?
At slow or no-wake zone, so that is, so you're not causing a wake, or under 5 miles an hour, I believe.
Okay.
Mark, I just have, while you're here, I got a couple of questions for you. Have you seen a change, since you were first there, as far as the water level? I mean, with all the changes we've seen in agriculture, is the water higher there in the river now than it was, let's say, 20, 30 years ago?
No.
It's about the same?
In fact, we've had that discussion with the DNR on a number of occasions. There's a small, oops, I better not draw on yours. There's a small pile of rock right in here that we fish off of. And so it's a really good benchmark to be able
So
to keep track
that's
of.
been consistent?
Yeah, it's been very consistent.
Okay.
Yeah. The high water is exactly where it was when I was a little kid.
Oh, all right. Okay.
So-
And then how about the quality of water with some of the things we've done? It's been my impression that, growing up as a kid along the Mississippi and with the Sauk, it was hideous at times.
Yeah.
And it seems like
Yeah.
it has improved.
From the standpoint of algae and so forth, it seems much better now. I can remember, years back where it was like pea soup. You could literally pick up that scum off of the surface. It wasn't even really a liquid.
Yeah.
It was that bad, and I don't see that anymore. But as far as water clarity, it's still awfully muddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to sit underneath this, when this was the old bridge, the metal bridge. You used to be able to, illegally probably, sorry, climb underneath it.
It is Lent, we're taking confessions.
Okay. Do I kneel or?
Statute of limitations is far gone.
We used to climb underneath the bridge and you could fish, you could sit on the beams and fish below there.
Yeah.
And you could darn near see the bottom and you could see thousands of panfish and stuff. That's not possible anymore. So the water clarity, I would say, it's awfully muddy. But at least the algae portion seems considerably better. But again, I think if we kind of can get this under control in other areas probably on the river where we're not washing away football fields with the mud into the river, clarity stands to improve.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
A money-making idea for somebody would be to develop an aquatic version of rumble strips.
And Mr. Chair, I misspoke a bit. The process for this type of ordinance is to conduct the public hearing today, then we ship it to the DNR, and then we'll bring it back for final approval if that's the route that you choose to go.
Okay, yep, thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify? Anyone else wishing to testify? Last chance. If not, we'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, any other questions? John, I just, human behavior, as far as us being able to police that, because of the distance, is that going to be an issue for people, again, that are in a hurry to get out on the water skis, to get out to their fishing spot and that nature? We're going to be putting signs up, but, will it be difficult actually to control the behaviors?
Initially, it may be, and with any new ordinance or new law that comes into place, we like to use education first. So now the DNR can take up to 120 days to approve this. So if they take all of that time, we may be into June before the new ordinance comes into effect. So we would, typically in the past we've used the first 30 days as an educational period, and we would concentrate on that during that time. So our typical water patrol arrangement in the summertime is to have both a south boat and a chain boat. So we would just have to work with those two boats and say, it's a weekend, it's going to be a heavy use weekend, let's get out there and let's make sure that people are aware, stop, be friendly, check them. We're not going to issue any citations, just make sure they're aware of the ordinance and see if we can gain compliance that way.
Yeah. Of course, with this winter, it might not be open.
It could be open water by August.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? If not, then we'll move on to the next section.
Do you need a motion?
Yeah,
Do we-
You probably ought to have a motion.
Are we looking for?
Or you want to do them both together? You're the chair. Tell us what
Okay.
to do.
Are you just going to bring it back to us?
If I may,
Go ahead,
I'm
sir.
sorry, Commissioner, Chairman, Commissioners, the DNR is looking to, they want to make sure that they know the content of the public hearing as well as the board's initial position on the ordinance. So a motion and your initial approval would be appreciated, or approval or non-approval, whatever the position is.
Okay, then I'll look for a motion to move forward with the ordinance.
I'll move that.
That's second.
Okay, motion by Lenzmeyer, second by Mergen. Any other discussion on it? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we'll go on to the next one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next ordinance is ordinance number 577, and this covers a channel between Long and Crooked Lakes in Linden Township. This ordinance was proposed and brought to the attention of the Sheriff's Office by the Long and Crooked Lake Association and supported by them. It does cover just the channel between the two, and not the rest of the lake, so it's fairly small in scope.
Okay. Any questions before we open the public hearing? If not, we'll open the public hearing. Anybody wanting to testify on this issue? Anybody wishing to testify on the no wake zone? Sir, come forward and, like the past, state your name, address, and that you may have the podium.
My name is Dan Torgerson. My address is 18421 Eaglewood Road. In Clearwater is the mailing address. I'm a resident on Crooked Lake. My immediate neighbors are residences on the channel, and so they have been, they have seen the most dramatic evidence of erosion. And it's a very small channel. It's not very wide, and a lot of people, because there are channel buoys in that say danger because the channel is narrow and not very deep, decreased our speed. But there's a good number of people that just blast right through that thing. It has been not only an issue of erosion with the wakes that are created by the watercraft, but also of safety because, again, the channel is narrow and shallow. And another neighbor who has young children play and swim in the channels. And when my granddaughters come up and they play with those kids, they're in the channel. So I think, you know, if you have a no wake zone and the speed is controlled, it decreases the hazard for people in the channel swimming or wading or whatever, kayaking, so that a speedboat or a personal watercraft is not blasting through that. Anticipating some of the questions that were asked just previously, the lake level has not changed very dramatically. The Long and Crooked Lake, who I am a member of, monitors water clarity and reports to the DNR lake levels. The lake level, the overall water level, has not changed significantly in the 34 years that I've lived there. And the water clarity has not changed. We measure it with a Secchi disc, and it has seasonal variation, but on an overall average, the water clarity has not decreased, at least measured by a Secchi disc.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify? Anyone else wishing to testify at the public hearing on the no wake zone? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Okay. Commissioners, anything else? Yes.
Go ahead.
You don't happen to have a overhead of that channel?
I do.
Okay.
If they can bring it up on the screen, you can see it. So it's just this little section here, and we would mark each end of it. This is Eaglewood Road that comes down here. It's kind of a peninsula between Crooked and Long Lake. And then the public access is to the north up here a little bit.
Okay.
And it's a small public access. I believe it holds 3 to 5 cars. Three.
I believe I know those doors from knocking them. Any other questions? If not, then we'll look for this similar motion to move this forward.
I can make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Lenzmeyer, second by Clark. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair,
Thank you,
Commissioners.
John.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to environmental studies. We have another public hearing.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. We are here for a public hearing, and Mark Lateral will go through that with you.
Good morning. I'll begin on packet page 234, item E1. The purpose of this item is for the board to conduct a public hearing to consider enactment of Ordinance 586 and a replacement to the current Food and Beverage Ordinance number 224. The current ordinance number 224, which regulates food and beverage establishments in Stearns County, was last updated in 2013. The proposed ordinance will reflect the newly active Minnesota rule revisions adopted and implemented in January of 2019 by the Minnesota Department of Health. The ordinance also helps to clarify, simplify, increase the department efficiency, and reduce penalty burdens of licensees as they operate in Stearns County through the review and proposed amendments to the local provisions in the ordinance. Both the Minnesota Department of Health and the County Attorney's Office have reviewed and approved the proposed ordinance. Standard public hearing notice was published in the newspaper on February 26, 2019. Information was provided to a handful of interested parties who specifically requested it, and the Environmental Services Department did reach out either via email or mailed memo to all the licensed food establishments identifying the availability of the information located on the county website regarding this potential ordinance adoption. I have not received any correspondence, written correspondence, or comments. So with that, Mr. Chair, I would turn it back to you for the public hearing.
Okay. Before I open the public hearing, commissioners, any questions? Okay, if not, I'll open a public hearing on the food ordinance. Okay. Okay. You know the protocol?
Kind of picking it up here a little bit.
Okay.
But, good morning, Mr.
Good
Chairman
morning.
and Commissioners. I just really don't have a lot of comments to make.
Well, you have to
I'm
state
sorry,
your-
that's right. I'm Paul Bugbee with Bugbee Hive Resort, Paynesville, Minnesota, 29659 Queen Bee Lane, Paynesville. I did receive a copy of the proposed ordinance changes, and of course my interest was had to do principally with the penalties that were assessed to those of us who have the onset of Alzheimer's and or dementia or whatever it might be. But I don't mean to make light of that, but the penalties came as a strong surprise, and I did hear from some other people who have in the past been penalized as well, and they were supportive of my position trying to change those penalties. I appreciate your work and the work of the Department of Environmental Services to look at that. Quite frankly, I was quite amazed and pleased with the changes that are being proposed here. I think they're more than reasonable and more than acceptable, and I thank you for that. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul. The communication goes both ways. We appreciate you bringing that up and anything we can do to make a positive change to the ordinance. So, thank you. Okay. Anyone else wishing to testify on the ordinance change? Anyone else wishing to testify today? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, do you have questions about the ordinance change at all? If not, we'll look for a motion to move it forward.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Commissioner Notch, second by Commissioner Mergen. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item that we have, Mr. Chair, will be related to Tri-County Solid Waste Commission and the pursuit of egg plastic recycling. So Tim is here to go through that item with you.
Good morning, Mr. Commissioners.
Good morning.
I believe in your packet, page 275, you have a brief summary of kind of the bids that we put together and went through. We have worked with Stearns County Purchasing Department to come up with what we think is a responsible bid from Republic Waste. Essentially what I'm looking at is restarting this egg plastic collection program that Revolution had done through the grant program in 2016. As you know, kind of the brief history of it, in 2018, summer of 2018, Revolution Plastic decided that this was no longer feasible for them to do anymore, so they left. And we've heard a tremendous amount of support for it to continue this program. In December, I sent out roughly 900 surveys to area farmers in Stearns County, Benton County, and Sherburne County, asking if they'd be willing to participate. Just a few questions: would they be willing to assist with the program as far as financial means? The overwhelming response was yes. I've been to the Dairy Advisory Committee. They are very in support of this. I did have the Tri-County Board in February approve this and motion to move forward with this. And what I have before you is just kind of a summary of the bid sheet, or what I've kind of my assumptions through things with Republic Services. So as you can see, some of the expenses are, we're looking to charge the farmers $25 per collection event, which would be every other month. So a total of about $150 a year. We've looked at maybe increasing that dollar amount, but at that point we're worried about level of participation dropping off. Republic's bid came in at $26 per collection event, or per tip as they call it. So what I'm asking for is if the county would be interested or supportive of providing the extra dollar per tipping event to continue this program. One of the other major costs for this program is going to be the baling of the plastic material. We've set this up, we're hoping to set this up with Waste Management at their facility in Sauk Center. That's one of the major unknowns in this program going in. I've kind of put together just my assumptions based on the 2017 amounts, and that's where my estimates came from there. It could change based on how much plastic is actually out there. We're anticipating there's a lot of it right now because these dumpsters have not been picked up since June or July of last year. And based on what Otter Tail County and Pope Douglas have encountered in their collection program, it was a significant amount. So we're kind of estimating the initial collection would be a full year's worth of plastic material. So therein lies the cost of the baling costs that I included in the estimate. One of the other things that we've learned from Pope Douglas and Otter Tail County is that once we start this program, the initial collection won't be enough to clean up what's already there. So what we're proposing is to come out the first month, the farmers would all be charged at $25. Month number 2, we're hoping the county would pick that cost up, the entire cost, with no charge to the farmers, just to get this cleaned up. Moving forward from there, month 4 would be significantly less, and it would be $25 to the farmers again moving forward. So the initial cleanup, the first 2 months, we're looking for roughly around $29,000 or $30,000 to get this cleaned up and get started on the program. And in that cost includes locating and removing some dumpsters from some sites. So we do have currently, right now, there's 281 dumpsters on the ground in Stearns County, and I have requests for up to 50 more. So, and I hope this program grows. Revolution Plastic has agreed to provide all the dumpsters that we can place at no cost. So the county would be responsible for the cost to place the dumpsters. So moving forward from there, after month 4, it would be the total bi-monthly cost estimated to the county would be about $1,675 per month. So, and again, year 2, moving forward would be significantly less. Again, year 2 of ag plastic recycling, we're estimating at about $26,000. So, and that includes the baling, and that could change based on participation levels if we have more people participating, based on how much plastic we collect. Waste Management has told us that they'll charge us 2.5 cents a pound for the material. And in 2017, I think we collected 600,000 pounds. So those are my numbers that I had included in the estimate. So some of the costs, will be offset through the Tri-County program. We've basically set this up. Benton and Sherburne County doesn't have very many dumpsters. There may be a handful in each county. So what we're looking at doing is through Tri-County, charging them a program fee of roughly $1,000 a year to participate in this program. If that significantly grows, we can take a look at that again and dive into that, after year 1. Minnesota Milk has also offered some grant money available for the initial collection, the initial cleanup of this material. So once we get into this, we will submit a request for some of those fundings. We're hoping to get $10,000 for the initial cleanup. So that would drop our initial cleanup fee from roughly $30,000, hopefully down to $20,000. So I guess with that, is there any questions that I can answer?
Commissioner Notch?
I guess I'll move the recommended
Yeah.
action with a comment.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Motion by Notch, second by Lenzmeyer. Discussion?
I just got to say, applaud the efforts to get something done with this. A lot of the farmers I spoke to, would gladly pay something just to continue this, because it obviously was, a good endeavor when it started, and hopefully, more of the farmers get on board and all of this stuff gets recycled. So thank you.
Commissioner Mergen?
Okay, the payment of this is coming out of the environmental service fee, right?
Correct.
Can you tell me what the balance is in that account right now?
I do not know the balance. I'm going to look to Randy.
Approximation?
Oh, yeah, this is in the board a while back, but yeah, we have a lot of money in there. So, and certainly
Okay.
budget-wise, we have excess funds. This is not going to put a dent in it in any way.
All right.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I was concerned about that.
And then the other thing is, after year one, I don't want this to be perpetual. Is it going to be revisited after the first year, after year 1, to see how it's working and up for renewal?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mergen, absolutely, we'll be coming back. We want to look to see if there are additional participants both in Benton and Sherburne counties, as well as to look at the whole set of numbers in relation to the collections, how the pickups have gone, other options, other things that we need to do. So we will be bringing all of this back, all the information.
So this motion is for just this year. Am I correct on that?
Is it 1 year or is it
Or
a
two.
2 year?
Two.
It's a 2 year.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner, we did ask in the bid submittals that these prices from the vendors be locked for 2 years, with the exception of fuel surcharges, and that's based on the Midwest Fuel Index. So it would be, the prices would be locked for 2 years roughly, but the participation levels may change. But we will revisit this after a year, yes.
Okay, but the motion then is for a 2-year period.
No, Mr. Chair, this is for a 1-year period based on what we requested for the $52,000 for all of those things. We will come back and not to exceed $52,000 from the environmental service fee fund. We expect we'll come back and have better numbers for you to be able to say what, if we need to support additional funding in the future for 2020, we will be back to have that conversation. So you're clear about what it is we would be asking for, or is it money from the Tri-County? How do we want to put that package together? And we will look at that at the end of this year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Commissioner Clark?
I want to thank you too, because I had those same questions. But I also want to thank you for the work that you're doing on this, including considering moving forward what might be some opportunities for the 40 counties that really have ag, and what might we be able to do that's innovative or creative working with some of our manufacturing partners. So thank you for that as well.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Commissioner, just to clarify that comment, we are working with Minnesota Milk to try to put together a meeting or a conference with the 40 counties in Minnesota that deal with ag plastics, see if we can't come up with a regional solution for this.
Okay, yeah. Commissioner Clark, yes, thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, if people are not aware of the situation, I encourage you to take a look when you're out driving to western Stearns County. Commissioner Notch, there's a lot of white laying out there in that part of the county that's not snow. And a lot of that is ag plastic. So as you're driving around, take a look at that plastic that is out there. The problem is that once that's used, it has to go somewhere. And we don't want it going in the ground. We don't want it being burned and going up in the air. We certainly would like to see it being reused to some extent. So I applaud you for doing that. A couple of things. Now, this will be for the ag plastic only. So they'll only be able to put the white plastic or plastic used into those dumpsters, right?
Mr. Chair, it will include boat wrap.
Okay, so it's another plastic as well. But it will be ag plastic that's being used?
Primarily, yes.
Yep. How about the aquatic plastic, the blue that we see at Marines? Can that be placed in there as well?
Yes, that's the boat wrap is
right,
what I referred to, yes.
Okay, but as far as other items, nothing else will be going in. It'll be just for the recyclable plastic, correct?
Correct.
Okay, good. All right. And, any other questions? If not, I'll look for a motion to move this forward.
We've got it.
We've got it, that's right. We're on the vote then. All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
And our next item, which is F2, is an annual report. And Becky is here for that.
Good morning, Becky.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Before you is the County Feedlot Annual Report for 2018. It is a requirement of the delegation agreement that the county board did sign. And so I do have 2 additional pages that should have been in your blue folders. These pages or documents are the owner assistance and outreach list of those dates and events, and then the inspection goals and some additional inspections or complaint activities that we could not document in the annual report. So we did end up with 112.5 inspections, and that is about 13% of the feedlots. The requirement is 7%, and we did also meet, we had our review last week and did meet 20 out of 20 minimum program requirements. And so this report will be submitted with your signature as approved, unless you have any questions.
Okay. Questions for Becky? If not, we'll look for a motion to approve the report.
So moved.
Commissioner Notch?
I can second that.
Commissioner Lenzmeyer, further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to make it complete, so we have all of our supervisors up here today. Angie will be here going through the next item, F3 on packet page 283.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Angie?
For your consideration today is a township plat entitled Countryside Cove located in Holding Township. This is a 3-lot plat for residential use and 2 outlots submitted by JITA Properties. The plat name is Countryside Cove. The property is approximately 14 acres and it is located in part of Government Lot 3, lying southeast of Timber Road and east of Tamarack Lane in Holding Township. The property address is 38718 Timber Road. Holding Township did approve both the preliminary and the final plat, as did the Stearns County Planning Commission. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on this plat on October 2nd, 2018. And I'm sorry, on January 17th, 2019, with 2 pages of conditions, all which have been met. And unless you have any questions related to any of the conditions, I'll refrain from reading through them. The developer has signed all the appropriate documents, submitted the financial guarantee, and it meets all the requirements as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Angie on that? Okay, Angie, Shelley, again, I appreciate your work. I appreciate the Planning Commission's work on this. I know there's a bit of angst out in that area, especially with the development with the water level issues at the lake and in the area. So we're very sensitive. We are aware of the conditions, and we'll continue to monitor those. Okay.
That's right. Thank you.
If not, we'll look for a motion to approve the plat.
So move.
Motion by Lensmeyer,
Second.
second by Clark. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
I had no miscellaneous, but I believe Commissioner Mergen may have something.
This is a situation I brought up to Shelley and asked her where she would like it on the agenda. It involves Joe and Karen Braulich, and I guess, and they are here. I asked them to be here so that they could explain the situation so I wouldn't get things incorrect as I interpreted. And also then Environmental Services is here, and then I'm going to have a request after they are done.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead. You may proceed.
Hi, I'm Joe Braulich. Address is 22740 County Road 22 in Sleepy Eye. We have lake property on Rice Lake on the southeast side. I believe it's called Sandy Shores. I guess to make a long story, we purchased the land roughly 2016. We were looking for property for a number of years before this. We owned some that was a back lot. We decided we wanted to be on the lake. We looked at properties. We called Environmental Services. We talked, and they stressed don't buy what do they call undesirable lots. Make sure the septic, so you can get septic up to code, have enough room. So, and we looked at a few other properties. A couple we looked at, they were in the floodplain, and actually one right beside us was in the floodplain that we had, and then this place came for sale. We called, he said, everything is good, the septic was up to code, so we purchased the property, and then it's it's an older cabin. It was built in the early 60s, I believe, and we wanted to add on to make it a 3-bedroom cabin. We applied for a septic, to redo the septic, to move the septic tank back, add on to the drain field to make it large enough. That okayed, everything was fine. Then we were told if we want to add on to the cabin, we'd come in, apply for building permit, things good to go. So last spring, we applied for our addition building permit, and they said, we've been looking at these maps wrong, your property is in a floodplain. So to get out, to resolve that, we'd have to raise the old cabin, fill in the crawl space, which just raising the cabin itself is about between an upper fours, 5,000. So that isn't really a feasible option for that cabin. So now we spent roughly $17,000 on the septic, and we redid the bathroom in the old cabin with the intention that we were going to remodel and put the addition on. Anyway, now we decided to put a modular cabin on. We found one that's a display model that we could save at least $13,000 to $14,000 from ordering a new one. And the cabin, we would stay in our same footprint with the cabin and the deck, with the old cabin is right now. I guess, what we're asking is either to give us a variance to build a cabin the way it is, the lot is set right now, or to have, I talked to Doug Brown, the contractor, we could have the tank dug up and moved back further on the lot. So, and that was roughly $3,500 to move the tank if it doesn't break, and if it does break, it would be another $1,800 to replace the tanks. It'd be roughly between $5,000 and $6,000. So I see Angie's got the photo of the property, and you can see the front where they have the building line now. You can see our front porch extends out. And we wouldn't extend our deck any further than the existing porch that's here right now. and you could see our septic tanks are 12-foot, and those are tanks, that we new tanks we put in, we could move them back. I would say our drain field is back by them, yeah, correct, there you go. So we could move the tanks could be moved back and turned sideways, and we'd have, you know, I guess that's.
Okay. So, and then your request would be, are you asking for that variance?
I would, yes. Well, actually, what we would like to do is get the nod that we get the variance, or, go
Okay.
ahead.
And but does that have to go through Board of Adjustment?
Correct.
Correct, so.
Right, but I understand that. I guess, you know, we have to make up our decision on this cabin rather, and we would just like to have the assurance that we would be granted it.
Well,
But
but we can't do that, right? We work independently from them, and
Sure.
which is probably a good thing. So by all means, I think that process can happen, but again, it'll be up to that board in which to make that decision as far as a variance. That's correct?
Correct. And the variance fee is
Well,
that, if we move ahead with this, you know, there is an envelope that we wouldn't be able to put Shelley, correct me if I'm wrong, it would fit on that piece of property, but we would need a variance in order to proceed, and the variance fee is another $550 over top of the permit. And what we're asking is that the variance fee could be waived based on the fact that had we initially known that this was in the floodplain, we.
correct. This, if we move the septic, that would solve all this variance issue. If we move
Okay.
the tank, and that's the thing, if we move this tank, we'd have plenty of room on the lot for the cabin and the deck to meet the, but we put the tank there with with our information that we received from Environmental Services that, you know, and that's why we're asking for to move the tank.
Okay.
So,
Commissioner Murphy?
just to make sure I got this correct, if they move the tank, they don't need a variance.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mergen, we've worked on a map, as you can see. We've shared it with Brawlix yesterday, I believe, and as proposed with the home that they're looking at, they would not need a variance. Again, this is not survey quality. We are not surveyors, nor have they completed a survey with this proposal. But this is the building line as established by the ordinance. They would be able to fit the cabin in here, meeting the property line setbacks and filling up to the floodplain, meeting the tank setback. What they would not be able to do is build the deck that they were hoping to build. That would be ahead of the established building line. That would require a variance. Or they could build a deck behind the building line in this location and have a patio in another location.
So what the Brawliks are proposing right now to move the tank and stay behind that line, even with the deck, they would not need a variance.
Without a deck, they would not need a variance, as we've preliminarily laid this out. Again, we are not surveyors, and with this much snow, it's going to be hard for us to go out and locate the pins and do all of the accurate measurements, but we've committed to work with them on doing that on site.
But, and again, the only reason they're in this situation is because of the misinformation that they were given.
The maps were incorrect. The floodplain maps and the parcel-based map are not survey accurate either. Hence all the disclaimers on the county maps that you'll see on the line. And as county staff and the public increasingly rely on this information, I know that land management is taking it seriously. I've talked with Chad Martini, who I think is here, and they excuse me, they do have a plan for looking at areas near lakeshore, particularly non-meandered lakes, and floodplain areas. So Chad and I have talked. He has a plan with his staff to work towards correcting these areas. The information that we gave him was what we had on the maps that were available at the time. And we have a plan to work on finding those areas, documenting them, and getting them fixed as we're aware of them.
This information was on all the maps that is shared between the departments?
Correct.
So where did all of a sudden the other information come from? That now how much difference was there?
So, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Morgan, I don't have the old map with me because it's corrected now, but what happened was the entire parcel was a whole parcel off from where their cabin was. So oftentimes you can see parcel lines cut through a cabin, and we know that that's not right. But in this particular situation, when we look at Brawlick's cabin, their parcel was actually showing up to be over here. And this property is not in the floodplain. So it was entirely off by a whole parcel, giving them and staff or title companies or anybody no indication that that was incorrect. So we're correcting them as they go.
As an example, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, the Lano property now, the people before that paid flood insurance for
Correct,
many years.
and they're off out of the floodplain. Now the lines were basically on our garage there where they got the 15-foot over. It was probably split, and it had the wrong names on the parcels. What they sent us, yeah, but.
Commissioner
The consumer relies on experts to give them this information, and they proceed on what they deem as being expert information. I don't think the consumer should be picking up the extra costs here. And if the Brawlicks are willing to go through this situation where they move that septic, I think the county should pick up that cost, because it was they're in this situation totally because they were given misinformation. And there's no other reason. Would they even have purchased this property at the price that they purchased it, at least, if they had known that this was all going to be happening? So that cost is also out there, and it costing them extra financial burden.
Commissioner Notch?
But in the same breath, like if you'd have known that, then when the septic got moved, it would have been moved back further, correct?
Well, we would have planned for a different situation, correct? Or we would have left it go probably but we were taking this financially. It's we're spending $12,000 on a septic and then redoing the bathroom, and we were trying to, right.
So Commissioner Morgan, what fee are you suggesting?
I would suggest
variance
whatever
fee?
it costs to move that septic, to make this to move that tank, to make this a viable situation where they don't have to go through the whole permit process and Board of Adjustment and that whole, sometimes that doesn't turn out well. And if the Board of Adjustment doesn't agree, that doesn't even come back to us. Now they have to take it to court. That could end up being a further poor situation for them. I think the most prudent thing here is for the county to pay for the moving of that septic, to make this a buildable situation without having to go through the permit process. Because none of this was the fault of them.
Commissioner Morgan, but they would have had to go through the permitting process to do it anyway, correct?
The permitting process, Mr. Chair, is correct. They'd always have to go through a permitting process, whether that be for this cabin or to do an addition. They would have had to do a permit and get a construction site
They wouldn't
permit.
have to go through the variance process.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, they still would pay for the permit.
Correct.
But they would have put this in properly to meet the standards if they had been given correct information.
Okay.
And they were given incorrect information, as I understand it, on more than one occasion.
Shelley, what is staff thinking is appropriate? Do you have an opinion on this?
I don't have an opinion on that. What we have done and what we're trying to do is take a look at is there an alternative that meets all the requirements, which is why staff reviewed and put the specific dimensions on the proposed cabin, making sure there was 15 feet around for the fill to make sure that was all on their own property. It appears that we have a 12-foot, potentially a 12-foot separation, which would meet the requirement of the ordinance because it's a 10-foot setback from the tanks. So there might be a little bit of room. We do not know until we get out there. And as Angie indicated, this isn't survey accurate. This is the best information that we have. We are certainly willing to work with them on all the measurements and the process, but we just don't have a specific, this is exactly what it is and where it will be until we get out there and measure. We have the dimensions of the proposed cabin though, and this is the best we could do at this time.
Can we move forward with the Board of Adjustment without having those measurements?
Mr. Chair, we would need to have accurate measurements for applying for a variance, and I think at this point, none of us are certain what Brawlix are asking for. Are they asking for waiving the $500 fee to $550 fee to ask the Board of Adjustment to be able to build the deck ahead of the established building line?
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, then the commissioners have done waivers in the past on situations like that.
Mhm.
If the Brawlix are asking for the county to pay to move the septic tank, speaking from experience, we don't budget for items like that, so that we would have to look back to the commissioners on
See, I
how
don't
to
think
handle
they've
that.
budgeted for this either, for this situation. And what they're, as I understand it, what they're asking for is to move the septic, and I'm asking that be paid for by the county because it's not their fault as it's with the situation that they're in. And they're asking, then that would just be a regular permit. They wouldn't have to go through the Board of Adjustment, is the way I'm understanding it.
We did apply for a building permit here. When was this date? We have the deck on there and everything that we had drawn out, and that's when Jamie said, this will not fit on there. And I mean, I think and we know it won't fit on there the way the septic is right now. It will not meet the setbacks, and I mean, I really don't want to put up a lake home and not have a deck that goes sit outside, or, is it going to be a 16-inch deck? Is it going to be a 24-inch? I'm not sure, but yes,
But is it your intent to not go through the Board of Adjustment?
Well,
to just get it situated so you can just have the regular permit
correct.
And ready to build?
Correct. All you're doing is, we're going to follow the setbacks or right. Or if, I guess, like I said, of the board, but now I understand you can't just say, okay, you can go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I guess the simplest, and not the cheapest, of course, but none of this is cheap, but to move the tank and be done with it. But
Can we get a variance on place the setback from the tank? Is that possible?
Mr. Chair, that is an option, as is asking for a variance from the building line, none of which can be guaranteed, as you've indicated, by this board.
Okay, Commissioner Nutt.
I guess I'd be willing to waive the variance fee if
Yep.
we can figure out, something. Maybe it's, can a variance be applied two ways, from the tanks and from
Yes.
as one variance?
Correct.
Right.
I mean, I'd be okay with doing something like that. I mean, yeah, it's an extra meeting, we can't control the outcome, but, there's two options with that variance.
I think we want this to work, but we
Well,
also have to be.
and we want
have
it to work, too.
Yeah, absolutely, and we want to make sure that also we're fair to all the other residents as well, and setting precedents is difficult, and we have to also work from what we've done in the past. I agree, Commissioner Notch. Working a variance either way, to me, would be good options, and the county waiving the fees, I would be very comfortable with that. Any other comments from the?
Okay, now, what if the Board of Adjustment turns them down?
We can't work, there's nothing we can do about that unless.
Okay, so where do we proceed if that happens?
We'll proceed at that time.
Okay.
We-
What are the options after that? Okay, if that happens, let's say, then do we come back and readdress moving the septic tank?
I believe we do that. Also, I think we need to have accurate measures on the lots as well.
Yeah, I'd like to know from the Brawlicks before we do any voting or anything on this, what they're comfortable with.
Well, I'm going to say, Karen.
Are you willing to go to the Board of Adjustment if we waive that fee?
Well, I think we have no other option.
Okay.
You know, I mean, as far as, we know that this isn't going to fit with the way the septic is set right now to put a deck on. I'm positive we could get the cabin to fit. And that was never the issue. It was just to have the deck put on, and it's not like it's gonna, the deck is not gonna impede on any neighbors. If you would pull the picture out further and look at Susan's property, the garage blocks, basically their view anyways of our property or our front, so.
I noticed the red line just all of a sudden here goes from the corner of the upper building, but it goes through the center of the one down below. Could that red line go through the bottom corner of the one on the building down below?
Here?
No, the building
The garage.
down.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mergen, the way the ordinance is written for a building line is that you take the point closest to the lake. Therefore,
Okay.
we don't pick this corner and we don't
Okay,
choose
so the
this
building
corner.
down below, the one on the bottom there. The garage. Okay, where's the point closest to the lake?
As indicated here.
It's right in the center of the building?
No,
It's
this
not the
isn't the
center.
center. This is an addition or something here, maybe a garage.
We can't
We can't
see.
see right here.
Oh, that would be helpful.
There we
Sorry.
go.
Oh, I'm
Sorry,
looking at
there
the
we go.
wrong building.
This is Brawlick's garage.
Okay.
This is the neighbor.
Oh, I thought you were using that garage as the,
Sorry.
okay. All right.
Yeah, I keep looking, he's
And-
not up there.
Okay, and what's the neighbor there, what's that, it looks like, no, stay on
Oh,
the
okay.
neighbor. Yeah, what's out front of that building? What is that? Is that a deck?
Deck or pavers.
So that doesn't count? That deck doesn't count?
Correct. Decks do not, we do not measure building line from a deck or a patio. It's just from the primary structure. That's indicated as laid out
But
in
if
the
their deck
ordinance.
went over the line, it would count against them.
Decks cannot be built ahead of the established building line, nor are they counted to establish a building line. So they're created equal when you're looking at building line measurements.
Are you, Commissioner Berger, are you asking if they had a variance on that bottom one for the deck? Is that what you're alluding to?
No, I'm just, we could go that route too, but, no, I'm just thinking that if that line was drawn to the edge of where that deck is, that would give them an extra few feet there, is my point.
Oh,
Which would maybe take care of that situation.
This is a question for Dr. Willie. In situations where it's established through probably legal process that a mistake was made on our part, what does our insurance, what would be our insurance status in situations like that?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner, I was going to jump in and just warn the board if they were going to discuss reimbursement for moving something like a septic tank, that we certainly wouldn't want to do that today or commit to anything like that until we can consult with our county attorney's office. That would be, I think, precedent setting. I'm not so sure that the county is fully to blame for floodplain mapping, and we would want to bring back considerable amount of information to the board, including if there would be any coverage for that too. Certainly, I wouldn't think that that amount would meet our deductible, though.
I think this has become a more complicated matter than we originally anticipated. I think it'd be prudent if we tabled the matter subject to legal opinion on this and additional information. If you guys can live with that. If you can, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, prior to going to Board of Adjustments, you'd have to wait anyway to get everything surveyed, correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Notch, the property, I don't believe, would be required to have an as-built survey. We have certain criteria.
Well, I mean, for deciding this, to measure the setbacks, what they're,
We would at least need to be able to go out there with Brawlix, find the property pins, and measure the building line, and then measure out all of these setbacks once a little bit of the snow hopefully is melted or we can shovel around. So that's going to take what it takes as far as the weather, a week or two, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
so that could get us to maybe one of our next meetings to also research additional information.
Yes.
Yeah, it'd be a miserable task to go measure it, but that's the best we can do, I would say.
I'm looking
Certainly,
for-
the board could take action to waive the variance fee if you wanted to do that today, but I think that's as far as this body can take that, because, as you all have said, there's a totally other body that would tend to that variance request. And that's really probably the only pending action that we would have.
I'm looking for another way to try and work with the Brawlix here. And if there's any way that red line could be adjusted to be at the front of that deck of that neighboring property.
I think that'd be in violation of the ordinance, and we just can't do that. Yeah, we can't make those exceptions.
I'd move to waive the fee and gather additional information.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Lensmeyer, second by Notch to waive the fee and gather further information. Any other discussion on this?
Are you okay with that at this point?
Yes, we'll work, and we've been working, and with them, and we're open to any suggestions, and yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Right. It's
We're kind of stuck in the middle, and now we have to.
Yeah. Well, this looked easy when we began, huh?
Yeah, Joe and Ken, we appreciate it, and we'll work
Yeah.
together on this.
Thank
I got a
you,
motion
guys.
and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, let's see if we can do this. I think the next few days, it might be difficult to get those pins, though. So we'll maybe wait for
July.
the rain to stop at least.
July.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And that's all I have.
Okay, I have just a question. We have planning coming up, I believe, next week, and we're going to have site visits coming up for those properties. Are we going to be able to get to those sites? Are we going to be able to make those site visits for the planning and the planning commission with the weather, as far as, do we have anything on shoreline or issues that would be very difficult to observe with the snow that we have?
Mr. Chair, the only shoreline alteration that you have is the continued Howard item
Okay.
in Wakefield Township, and so I know most members were able to get out to that property.
Right.
That is, it's passable right now, but it's an unmaintained road from the township, so it's a little difficult to get out there depending on, if you don't have four-wheel drive.
Correct.
And then you're gonna need to have some snow boots. It's gonna be pretty deep. You're not gonna be able to see anything more than you did 3 months ago out there.
Correct.
If we are ever aware that there's concerns with accessing properties in the winter, we will let you know, because staff goes out to all the
Yep.
properties. We will give you a heads up and say, park here, walk this way, or you can't access this property this time of year. My understanding is we don't have those limitations for next week's meeting.
Okay, good.
Best efforts, that's all you can do.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. On the agenda here, we have a break. Are we going to take that, commissioners? Okay, all right, we'll take a 5-minute break. Okay, we're back
Steve
from
had
our
something.
recess. We have engineer Jody Tyke with us now, Public Works.
Good morning. My items begin on packet page 289. My first item is I'm asking the county board to approve the award of the 2019 resurfacing contract. The low bid was 2.91% over estimate, but it does fit within our overall budget. This work does include some work in Linden, Main Prairie, and Millwood Township, so I'm asking the board to approve awarding the contract to Knife River Corporation.
A move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Move to approve by Commissioner Mergen, second by Commissioner Notch. I have a little bit of sticker shock looking at that, just because of the size of the number, but it's the nature of the beast. This stuff is not cheap.
And it is under our overall amount in our road program budget, so.
Yeah. And we do have roads in need out there in the county. Any discussion, questions by the commissioners? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
My next item on page 292 in your board packets is I'm asking the board to approve the award of the 2019 Seal Coat contract. The overall bid does include some work for Linden Township. However, this is slightly over our budget amount. We looked to see if there was anything we can cut back. There are some areas where we may go a little bit narrower because we have the ground and wet reflective edge lines. So we feel overall it will be near our budget amount. I'm asking the board to approve the award to Aztec Corporation. I do want to point out one formality. We did get one bid 15 minutes late, so we did not open it. I know there were some questions. That is our practice per MnDOT specification. If bids come in late, it's the contractor's responsibility to make sure that they come in on time. That bidder did inform us he was not lower than the low bid anyway, not that it would have mattered, but I did want to point that out in case the commissioners do get any questions on that. So again, I'm asking the board to award that contract to Aztec Corporation.
Okay.
So moved.
Questions by, motion by Commissioner Notch?
I'll second that.
Second, Lenzmeyer. Discussion? Jody, quick question. We just had $14 million in reconstruct. Now we have the seal coating. Typically, how many seal coats do we do before we do a reconstruct?
One or two. We're at the point where we're almost caught up on our seal coating. We did get quite a ways behind. So now we try to do that first seal coat 3 to 5 years after the initial surface is placed. It would be optimal to do another one at about 15 years, 12 to 15 years after that, before and overlayer the next resurfacing project, basically. We've not gotten to that point, but we're hoping to get caught up. Keep in mind, as we do a significant amount of new surface with the additional revenues we've been receiving, that may have an impact on our future seal coat budget as well.
But that seal coating is a good investment in that, how long does it usually prolong the life?
It rejuvenates that surface, that asphalt emulsion in the surface, and it preserves that surface. Staying on top of crack sealing, I believe, is even more important than the seal coating, and we've been pretty aggressive with that. But that seal coat is going to extend the life of that pavement, so hopefully put it a little further, at least several years before you'd need to do that overlay.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
I have another bid award for you. We opened bids for SAP 073609-041, and that's replacing that structure along County Road 9 over Spunk Brook, just southwest of Avon. The low bidder was Landwehr Construction, and they were 0.34% over estimate, but very close, within hundreds of dollars of our engineer's estimate. This work would take place this summer. We have to observe the DNR exclusionary dates for our permit. So I'm asking the board to award that bid to Landwehr Construction.
Okay. Motion on the bid? Motion by Commissioner Clark.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Mergen. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
My next item on page 298 in your agenda packets, I'm asking the board to approve and authorize final payment on our second half 2017 gravel crushing contract. If you're wondering why this has taken so long, most of this work actually got done in late 2018 because of some of the pit conditions we ran into. So the overall bid is under the original contract price by just over $3,000. I'm asking the board to approve and authorize that final payment.
So moved.
Okay. Commissioner Notch?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Mergen. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
For my next item, I have MnDOT Agency Agreement Number 1032957. This is related to a federal fund exchange with Wright County. We have 2 federal projects, one scheduled for this year, one scheduled for next year, for which we have federal funding. However, Wright County has a very large federal project, so we will give them our federal funds and get an equal amount of their state aid funds in return, and we will not have to go through that federal process that accompanies the federal dollars. So to do that, I need the board to approve the attached agreement. And then also at the end of agreement on packet page 307, there's the standard resolution that goes with any MnDOT agreement that authorizes the board chair and auditor treasurer to execute the agreement on behalf of the county.
Questions about that agreement? If not, we'll look for a motion.
I can move that.
Commissioner Lenzmeyer?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Clark. Discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
I do have one very quick miscellaneous item. We just received authorization from MnDOT to begin advertising for bids for SP 073-070-018, and this is a highway safety improvement program project. It will be 90% funded with federal funds, and this is the ground-in 6-inch wet reflective edgeline pavement markings. So I'm asking the board to approve a bid opening date of April 4th, 2019.
So moved.
Commissioner Notch, second, Commissioner Mergen. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
I have no miscellaneous unless the board has anything for me.
Questions for Jody?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Did we mention to the public that the broadband was taken off the agenda?
We did not.
We should probably
Okay,
just state
yes.
that for the record.
Yeah, we did have a broadband discussion on the agenda when we went to recess. Yes, that was taken off the agenda. Mike, what was the situation with that?
Our consultant, Neil Connect, Diane, it lives in the rural Denver area, in the area where they were having avalanches, and so that at the time she was planning the trip, they were advising no travel, and then she was looking forward to our weather and decided to wait a week or two before she comes to
Okay,
us.
all right, that sounds legitimate, yeah.
Thank you.
Very much so, thank you. Thanks for reminding me. Okay. Jeff, we're on with the assessor, thank you.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. My name's Jeff Johnson. I'm the Stearns County Assessor, and to my right, your left, is Assistant County Assessor Jake Peedy. Want to thank you for the opportunity to allow us to talk about the 2019 assessment. We do have a presentation, but I want to be respectful of your time and your busy schedule that you're keeping today, and so I'm opting to move away from a full presentation, but just touch on some of the high points and answer any questions and concerns that you may have. I was prepared to talk about the property assessment work that we completed, market conditions and sales activity ratios, as well as value changes and a little bit about new construction. But I think we can postpone that and pick that up sometime within the next month and a half or 2 months when we provide you with our full-blown 2019 annual assessors report. However, I think it's incumbent upon me to take this opportunity to tell you about the work that we completed and also to address some of the market changes based on the sales activity that we had analyzed over the past year. What I'd like to draw your attention to, it's not in your packet because the information that was provided to you are on packet pages 311 through 320, and there were several maps detailing the assessment level by different property categories on pages 313 through 320, which I will not speak to directly because it's for informational purposes only. However, I will talk about market conditions or trends, or something that we call a time adjustment that's applied to our sales ratio study. This is the 2018 sales ratio study that's used for the basis to value property for 2019. And the market conditions were such that the agricultural rural vacant land parcels Apartment, commercial, industrial did not have a time adjustment for this year, meaning that the sale prices for these property types were not adjusted for any market conditions that showed any significant increases or decreases. However, the residential seasonal aggregation is a property type that continues to see changes because of the conditions in the local marketplace. What I'd like to point out in this summary on the screen is that you'll find that the off-water properties, particularly western and eastern Stearns County and Sartell City, saw some changes this year. Actually, the western and eastern part were down from where we were in 17 and 16. The time adjustment that were applied to these sales to align them to the assessment date of January 2nd was about 5% and 6% on eastern Stearns, and as you can see, it actually went up in the city of Sartell to almost 6.5%. But what's interesting about these statistics and the analyses that were done to analyze the market conditions over this time is that we did see some large and significant movements with our lake properties in the county this past year, particularly in western and eastern Stearns County. As you can see from this evidence here, the on-water properties in western Stearns County moved a little over 7%, and in eastern Stearns County it moved about 8.5%. That being said, we are going to see some increases in property values, particularly in the residential and seasonal property types. If you can move to the next slide, please. This is a summary of all of the exhibits that are found on pages 311 through 320. And what it does is it provides you with a 5-year profile of the assessment level prior to any changes that were administered during that assessment cycle. And what I'd like to point out is that for apartments, commercial, industrial, and then also for the agricultural property types, is that the ratios have remained relatively stable or constant. In other words, we've been in the 90 percentile. And so the changes that we've seen among these different property types will range anywhere from a negative 3% upwards to 6 or 7%. And in some cases, some property types may have exceeded 10%. I'm speaking specifically about apartments, commercial, industrial, and agricultural when I make that statement about variations in market value from one year to the next. There are going to be some instances because of the low ratio with the agricultural rural vacant land that on the eastern end of the county we did increase land values on tracts of 34.5 acres or less, and in areas around lakes, in cities where the market seemed to be rather vibrant. And that being said, it was not uncommon to see increases on some property types of 15 to 20%. Now, moving to the residential, you'll see an aggregation here for seasonal and residential combined, and then also it's broken down for off-water and on-water. The number of sales have increased in recent years for this property type. We're looking at 1,281. The overall assessment was 88.53. When you look at the information that's been provided in the packet with residential properties, we did have some districts that were relatively low. When you have sales volume of 6 or more sales in a district, it's a candidate for change. And we did have a few that were in the low to upper 70s, but most of the ratios for residential property types were in the mid 80s, which means that the movement was going to be in the area of 7 or 8%. Overall, that's what we achieved. Many of the districts out west saw increases of, let's say, -3 upwards to 5 or 6%. The central eastern part of the county for residential properties saw increases in the neighborhood of 5 to 10%, and then exceeding 20% in some areas when those ratios were well below the accepted standard. So that being said, I just wanted to brief you on those changes, that property owners will begin to be informed beginning next week, because our notices of valuation and classification will be mailed out on or before March 20th. They'll be mailed separately from the tax bills this year because of some issues dealing with tax programming changes and some of the vendor deadlines that I communicated earlier to you last week. What we're also doing, much like we did last year, which was successful, is that we're sending out courtesy letters to those property owners that have or will be experiencing large increases in market value to pay particular attention to their notices of valuation and classification, and to contact us if they have questions or concerns. The dates and times and locations for the local boards of appeal and open book meetings are published on the notices that are being mailed. Additionally, what we're doing is we're using our website, as we did last year, to communicate the local board meetings to the taxpayers of Stearns County. And secondly, we're also pushing out our 2019 property assessment update, which will be providing a lot of the information I would have covered with you today, as well as what will be covered later on when we do the 2019 annual assessment update and produce our report to you. That will show the changes in market values by district, what the estimated final sales ratio is to be. We believe that we've achieved acceptable levels of assessment across all property types once again. It took a lot of work, but it was necessary to increase values, particularly in a lot of our lake areas of central and eastern Stearns County, to achieve those acceptable levels. Our team members are engaging townships and cities at this time by providing them with sales information and market trend information to assist them in understanding why these changes did occur. I think that pretty much concludes my short report that I wish to offer. If there are any questions or concerns that you have regarding the property assessment process, I'd be happy to take them now.
Okay.
Jeff, no news is good news.
No news is good news. Thank you.
Okay, any other commissioners? Okay, appreciate all that work, and we'll see that report then.
Yes,
later.
and pay particular attention to our website, because last year was the inaugural season where we introduced the annual property assessment update. And in there, you'll find a synopsis by market category as to what movement was seen within the market and the reasons for those changes. And additionally, I want to mention too that it was a good year in terms of new construction here in Stearns County. There was a total of $177 million worth of new construction reported. And that includes the exempt properties, which amounted to about $17.8 million, and that would be buildings like the Stearns County office building that's being expanded. There's been some schools and other institutional types of buildings, but primarily the taxable property, the increase in market value was $159 million. And the big drivers there was residential once again. That was up from $75 million to $80 million. Commercial was up considerably from $32 million to $49 million. And apartments remained relatively stable right around that $11 million mark. So it was a good year in terms of activity, and that certainly presented itself in the way of sale prices being paid. And we continue to follow the direction because as assessors, we act like historians, and we base our assessments on the transactions between buyers and sellers. Assessors don't create value, we report value.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good. We'll go to the final item on the agenda, I believe, issues by commissioner. Start in the end there. First of all, Randy, did you have anything for us?
No, I guess just one follow-up with Jeff's comments is the little bit of the downside that we've been seeing is the appeals by utility companies that we don't assess those properties, they're state assessed. And so we rely on those values, and then they get appealed and they get lowered. So it ends up hitting our tax base, and unfortunately, some of those appeals are larger than we'd like to see, so.
That's correct. Those are valuations that we have really no control over because they're state assessed properties. And they're subject to a similar review process like the real property here in Stearns County and throughout the other 86 counties. However, there are appeals that are entered into by the utility companies, and there have been several in recent years.
Yeah. And these go back a few years, and so they do have a financial impact. And I know it's been talked about at the state legislature about doing something, and hopefully they'll find something that can help out because this does hit us. So
that's correct. It's on the radar, and I believe there may be some legislation introduced, and it's certainly a hot topic.
Yep.
Okay. Commissioner Nudge?
I have nothing at this time.
Okay, Commissioner Lenzmeyer?
Nothing. I have nothing.
Commissioner Clark? Nothing. Dr. Williams, nothing? Okay. If not, I'll just mention a couple of things. Again, I appreciate the good trip out to D.C. with Commissioner Lenzmeyer, Commissioner Clark. We had some very good visits with our congressional folks. Also some very good speakers, some very good seminars. I think it was pretty insightful. One thing coming away from that, as far as broadband is concerned, we see there's a process or an app that's going to be available for folks with their devices called Test It. And we'll be able to assess areas within the county that maybe they're not getting the service that we'd like them to, or the strength of the signal that they would. And it appears that that's something that we might be able to all benefit from. So perhaps we'll put that on the website to get that out to the folks that, again, can improve a picture of what we actually have for a need.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did put that on our next task force agenda so the group can talk about it, 'cause, you know, and they can, hopefully they can help advertise that out in the western part of the county too. So we'll talk about that and put it on the website as a good
Sounds
idea
good.
too.
Okay. With that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Commissioner Mergen?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Clark. All those in favor? Aye. Aye, aye. We're out of here.